Good afternoon. My name is Scott Redler, Chief Strategic Officer at T3Live.com. It's Tuesday, and welcome to today's recap and look ahead. So, interesting day. Day, I guess, two, or not even day two, but first day of a bounce back after the two-day slide in tech. And while that slide was happening, definitely some money went over to the small caps, to the banks, to the bios, to the home builders, and the rally kind of broadened out. And you put a little bit of a bounce on tech that got a little bent but not broken, and all of a sudden here we are right back near highs. If you go through the landscape of what's going on, which we tried to put in the morning call express in the note, how to play versus levels just in case, you've had a calculated way to be involved, even after some price discovery. So if you look here at the chart, first of the S&P cash, listen guys, this was the breakout above the your 2404. Here was your first bull flag move to highs. Then this was your loose wide day to get out of the way, okay, on Friday, not knowing what would be next. Then all of a sudden Monday, we opened up, above Friday's low, and then today we basically, took back the 8-day, and sellers have not been able to reject price on the S&P cash. S&P is still strong, and here was your close almost a little bit above this level or right there. So not looking very bearish. If they wanted to break this thing, they would have broken the 21-day, would have did a breakout failure. Instead, the 21-day held, and above the 8 and 21-day, we talk about being strong. Sometimes you break the 8-day, even if you readjust and you hold the 21-day, you stay the course. Or if you just say, I'm going to give it to the 50-day, and you're a swing trader and you give things more space, then you didn't even flinch. As far as the other sectors, the IWM to me looks like it's ready to make a new all-time high. Okay, here was the range that wound up holding. Here was when it woke up. Remember that 3-day move? Then all of a sudden digested higher above the moving averages, and now it's holding here, looking as if it could extend. So some guys, if you remember yesterday, I'm like, you could be long verse 140.70. Yesterday we went to 140.90. Today we did a higher low. It's a narrow range bar, so we'll see which way the market wants to go with the Fed. Okay, looks to me as it's going to be to the upside. So I'm long a little IWM just in case. As far as the IBB, I think it's interesting too. I tried it on Friday. I got stopped out when you had this loose wide range bar, thinking, maybe it'll create some kind of down move. But what happened? We talked about 291 holding, the moving average is holding. Still commitment to this move here. So to me, the bios look interesting that if they want another sector to show a little alpha, it seems as though you could be in long tier 1 versus 291, and then if it takes this out in a way that's tradable with volume above 295-ish, the next move above or the next move to 300, could have a bit more power. Remember, the sector's been in basically a laggard sector for multiple years. Some guys play the XBI, and the XBI also, if this was a stock, I'd be foaming at the mouth saying, okay, there's really no such thing as a 1, 2, triple, quadruple top. It usually goes through it. So this too has been holding above the moving averages, closed pretty strong. So you'll see if the XBI, whichever one you want to play it, or the IBB. As far as the banks, the XLF still acting somewhat well. I'm not long the XLF. I think it's a little extended. They tend to try and shake things up a little bit on Fed day. As long as it holds above this spot, I think some active guys are going to try and be long it. We shall see. I think most people know it'll be a quarter tomorrow, a rate hike, but then the question is, do they talk about the balance sheet and give it an insinuation that we might go again in September? If they do, some of the banks will act better. Goldman Sachs, ran quick and then came back in. Still trying to clear this little spot here. Okay, it's been a laggard. It's hasn't done anything in multiple months. It just gave you a little pop off this lower level. I don't know. It's up to you. Citigroup, I still didn't revisit yet. To me, I like it when it's calculated. This actually kind of looks like the XBI, but not yet. Here is when I got long Citigroup, sold it on Friday. Still acts well. It's just a little extended and looks a little vulnerable if we want it to be, but it doesn't look like a short. It just looks like not a great setup. This was your better setup, buying it here, adding to it on a buyable breakout, and then selling some strength. Bank of America, I'm usually long Bank of America into a Fed meeting, and I'm not this time. It's in the game. It's right back at resistance, so you'll see how it handles this. It's a little extended from the moving averages. This was probably the better spot to buy it, and now if you're in some, I guess, trail it versus spot. As far as high beta tech, this morning in my note, I listed an order of the strongest high beta tech names. Why was it the order? Because I tried to show you which high beta tech names held higher, meaning some held the 8-day, some the 21-day, some in between the 21 and the 50, some below the 50, to try and give you a relative strength type of feel. And Tesla, which was the top rated, not because I love Tesla and it was my play of the year to start with the Redler report, but because on that pullback, what did it do? It only came to the 8-day. Gave you a red dog reversal. On the VTF, we talked about Ron Barron coming on TV, who was a big-time supporter of Tesla. So if you cheated saying, I think he's going to be positive, you got paid on the open. And even if you didn't buy it overnight, there was ways to enter. And now look, it's going to be the first, one to make a new high again. So the bears didn't reject price. If the bears were going to reject price, they wouldn't have let it get through half of that wide range bar from, what's it called? From Friday. So at this point, 25% short, good luck. This pattern looked a little familiar or similar to NVIDIA, except for NVIDIA came down to the 21-day. So as of now, NVIDIA, not as strong as Tesla, okay, it came into the 21-day, not just the 8-day, gave you a red dog reversal yesterday, opened up, came in, was a little choppy. This has not reclaimed the 50% mark yet. Still looks like it could continue, but it's above the 21 and the 8-day, so it's hard to be short that, even though you do have a wide range bar. The next pecking order was your Amazon and your Google. Why was it next in order? Because I just showed you Tesla and NVIDIA that held above the 8 or the 21-day. This came all the way to the 50-day without the flash crash. So now it did close above this prior pivot, so I am long a little bit. It could come up and test this spot or maybe even into this area. So I'm in a little bit, but got to be a little careful. But this also, has to get rejected soon. If sellers are going to have any control, they probably don't let this 890-ish area, or they could push it up to, I guess, 895, get reclaimed. Google, it held above the 50-day, gave you a little red dog reversal, and then took this out, but a little lethargic. So Google and Amazon still a little lethargic, but sellers are going to have to come in soon to reject price. Otherwise, it could do what it did here, where you have a green day, another one, and then made it as if that high was never happened, or this day. This time, a little bit more controlling power, but the longer it stays above this spot now, the higher the probability it can continue if the market wants to. Facebook, what did it do today? This gave you a red dog reversal again here. What did it do? Why is that a red dog reversal? Well, if you sold it when you had this outside day here, okay, above this pivot of 154.73. You were able to buy it back here at this pivot of 146.40. That's like $7 lower with a stop. Okay, now this actually, closed pretty strong, took out yesterday's high. So, we'll see what happens here, but it is into the moving averages, so maybe it goes up a little bit more. But again, if the sellers wanted this wide range bar to have some control moving forward, it needs to reject price quickly or soon. BABA didn't have a great day. I heard there was some huge imbalance. It's still well above this gap. It's still above the 8-day, letting things consolidate. See, you got to check the rebalance game, which I'm not very familiar with, but at some point I think it'll be buyable, but I want to let a little bit more price discovery happen. I don't like to just buy something even though it was a forced sale, that closes near the lows. I'd rather miss a little bit of a gap up and figure it out with some price discovery. Best thing would be a push into this gap, come back up, give us a point of reference to be long against, but we shall see. And what else? What else happened today? What did X do today? Yeah, X is kind of hanging in there. I'm not in X right now. We traded that X pretty well, or decent. This is when we were long on this day, added on this day, sold into that day, but it looks like it's trying to flag again. It's above the moving averages, so maybe it does continue towards there. I did sell my UA calls. For those of you on Redler All Access, congratulations. It was a great trade for us. I actually traded it twice. I think first time we bought it was like down here and sold some, then bought more down here, and then held through because I have the July calls, and now I sold it into this gap up. It was very nice. A few days ago, we talked about buying the GWPH calls for the Goldman Sachs, June 14th conference. The reason being, it was, I've been told by lots of sales traders, they love it, love it, love it. Here is a big time resistance. I actually, to start the year, we put it on my list, and I think I was long some options here, sold some there, and then I held half thinking it would go, and the other half expired worthless. So down here, I'm like, you know what? Let me buy some August and Novembers just in case some good data comes out, et cetera, et cetera. Had a 3-day bounce, sold a little bit on the offer, but I'm in well over 2/3, and I'll hold that to see what comes out of the conference or not. You know, here's some bigger resistance. I don't trust the stock the way it is, so that's why I'm in some options. I did show you the IBB, which is something that's on my radar to see if we can get some kind of commitment, bull flag type of continuation pattern. Some guys actually look at the LABU. Maybe that's you, maybe it's not, but this too also is looking as if, you know, the buyers are getting some flows, and it's just a matter of time before something, you know, look at something better could happen here. It's failed many times here, and there's a big short interest, and one of these times it might take it out to the upside. You know, you go even further back and you'll see, you know, look how depressed this thing has been for multiple years. Since 2015 it hasn't got above this. One of these times it might. And if it does, you might be able to see a move towards 75-ish. So that's a nice move. I guess the same thing for the IBB. You look at the IBB longer term, you know, hasn't done a whole hell of a lot in such a long time. So, you know, it gets me a little antsy when it gets close because sometimes it does change. Talking about changing, maybe the XLE, which has been caught in this descending trend line here for the first time. Perhaps, you know, it takes back the 50-day for the first time, okay? This is a descending channel. It's failed every time. It's been a good buy on the bottom end, a good sell on the top end. We'll see what happens here. Use this as your stop. At some point, it might break above this and then give you another move, okay? The people who were short here, short here, short here, this whole way up got paid. Don't go back to the well if you think it's that easy to short it at the 50-day. One of these times it's going to change and you can get a little bit of a different trade, but we shall see. Yeah, the last few times I've tried it, you know, if you had I got stopped out here, got stopped out here. This time I'm not involved, you know, but maybe it'll go for you guys without me because I'm not involved. Sometimes that happens. I'll take it for the team, not be involved because, you know, whatever. If it gets above this, maybe you get that trade. We shall see. So in closing, there's still lots of things to do. You know, when volatility hits, it's fine to reduce risk. You know, it's fine to let markets do price discovery. You know, there are ways to get back in using the red dog reversal, using a 5, 15, 30-minute low like you had first thing yesterday. Guys even made money today, you know, from yesterday's low to the gap up, you know, into those 21-day moving averages. The first time it kissed it in the first 30 minutes and came off it, some guys shorted them, and then you know, Amazon pulled in $7 and the video went red. Baba pulled in hard. So there was money to be made short too, you know, but you had to take it off as things drifted back towards the highs of the day. Lastly, we'll see what happens with Apple. You know, not much of a bounce, okay? Still a little lethargic, but it does seem as if, or I would think, that, you know, perhaps it wants to test this 50-day moving average, if no crazy news comes out about their iPhone 8 not coming out in September. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But either way, this got resolved to the downside. It does have some more room if they want to push the envelope to, you know, to test the 50-day or maybe even a little bit more. So that's why I went long on the close yesterday, and I'm long a little bit from today. Not acting spectacular. It's only small just to try and figure out if, you know, you can get a little bit more of a retracement. But Apple definitely has changed for the short term. With all that said, have a great day. I'll see you in the morning. Fed day.